Good evening. My name is Peter Preuss, and I'm the co-chair of the UCSD Entrepreneur Challenge with David Eichhorn, who will be speaking in just a minute about our mission statement. The Entrepreneur Challenge is a student-run organization dedicated to increasing entrepreneurship along the Torrey Pines Mesa. We promote the formation of multidisciplinary teams along the road to commercialization. Over the past 8 years, the Entrepreneur Challenge has helped dozens of teams go on to create companies that made an incredible impact on San Diego. We will be hearing from 5 of those companies tonight. These companies received funding and in-kind service awards through our annual series of events. I'd like to thank everyone for coming tonight, and I look forward to your support. You can support the Entrepreneur Challenge by joining us as a staff member, competing in the competition, mentoring one of our teams, or sponsoring our events. Along those lines, I'd like to thank last year's sponsors who actually made this event tonight possible. And I'd also like to thank this year's sponsors, DLA Piper, ResMed, and Janssen Healthcare Innovations for their continued support. Please contact me or any of the Entrepreneur Challenge staff about getting involved. You can like us on Facebook, join our LinkedIn group, join our mailing list, and join our meetup group, which is new this year, to get the latest information about the competition and upcoming events. Information about joining these networks can be found on our website, challenge.ucsd.edu. Now I'd like to introduce David Eichhorn to talk about the Entrepreneur Challenge mission.
Good evening. So I'd like to talk to you about the importance of the Entrepreneur Challenge in this community and where we see it headed in the future. The Entrepreneur Challenge is an excellent venue to learn about entrepreneurship for our students, and that's part of why it was started, first and foremost. And that's the emphasis we're definitely going to be taking this year, is looking at our own community and focusing on education about entrepreneurism and where it fits into our lives here at UCSD. There is an incredible amount of intellectual property and expertise here at UC San Diego, and it's all of our jobs to take all of these brilliant ideas and to help them really gain a life and to become available to the public outside. The Entrepreneur Challenge is definitely an excellent proving ground for ideas, for young entrepreneurs, for people who want to learn more about doing business and about applying everything we've learned. The reason tonight is an alumni night where we bring back some of the people who have been through this before to speak to you is really because we're very excited for them to come back and share their story so that the community can see where an idea starts and what it takes to really make it come alive and really become a reality. Because having come from the sciences myself, I've often seen how it can seem very distant. And so these people have all done it, and they've all done it with the Entrepreneur Challenge. So in the future, we're going to work this year on creating more of a curriculum and working more on the polish and helping all of the young entrepreneurs actually find their value and take these ideas and really refine them. We started putting more of an emphasis on that last year, and we saw wonderful results. So we're very excited about what's coming up in the coming quarters. So with that, I'd like to invite you to come and participate and let us know if you have an idea, if you have a will to just participate, helping entrepreneurs find their voice, and we would love to have you. So with that, I'd like to introduce Court Turner, our moderator for this evening. Court Turner joined Avalon Ventures in 2008 as an advisor and became a venture partner in 2010. Mr. Turner is President, CEO, and Director of Corollas Therapeutics, COO and Director of Fraxis, and Director of Zakaron Pharmaceuticals, each Avalon portfolio companies. Additionally, Court led Avalon's investments in RQX Pharmaceuticals as its founding CEO and chairman, is COO, Director of Sova Pharmaceuticals, and a board observer of Cardias Pharma, each Avalon portfolio companies as well. So thank you very much, Court, and thank you to each of our panelists, who I'd also like to briefly introduce as well. Phil Bourne is here for SIV. Phil is the Associate Director for Innovation and Industry Relations here at UC San Diego. Raj Krishnan is here from Biological Dynamics and won one of our early challenges. Thomas Del Monte is here with Intera Energy and has also been through the challenge. Jared Tenney is here, was a winner from last year with Electrozyme, and so is Anand Gortek with Diva Nano. So thank you very much, Court.
Thank you. Everybody hear me? It's coming through the speaker? Oh, okay. All right, so I wanted to give a little bit of background on myself, other than my long list of inflated titles that David went through. So Avalon Ventures is a venture capital firm that was founded in 1986 by Kevin Kinsella here in La Jolla, and we're now investing out of our 10th fund. And I'm focused on the life sciences side. We also invest in tech, but the important part is the things that we look at. We typically invest in things right out of academia. We've invested in a number of companies right out of UC San Diego that have been quite successful. And so I was a judge for the challenge last year. And so I, on a regular basis, get to interact with entrepreneurs like this that come in, pitch their ideas, and part of it isn't my decision isn't that it's good or it's not, it's whether it fits with what we're looking to make an investment in our particular portfolio. And so I think our goal today is not so much, is the company going to make it in the future? I think the goal is the challenge an opportunity that they've seen, that they've been involved in, that has been a positive role in the company's evolution from the start until now. And I think what we also want to get from the panelists is, how could it be improved? How did it help? And then I want to get into some of their personalities in terms of why they are good at what they do, why their companies have made it this far, what aspects of their personality do they think could be improved to make their companies more successful. And that might be an area the challenge might be able to supplement for some of the companies you might have in the back of your mind. So maybe what we'll do initially, just so everybody knows what the companies are, really quickly, maybe starting with you, Phil, just give an idea of what your description of the company, how you spend your time, what the company does, and the services it offers, and I guess 10 years from now, what you hope the company represents, looking at it from today.
So the company I'm representing here is Scivi.tv, which is a sort of Web 2.0 kind of company which relates to my own personal passions. I'm actually a professor here in pharmacology as well, around open science, and the idea that if scientific content is open, how can you leverage that to make new discoveries and comprehend things in a better way, and so build business models on top of the strong move towards e-science and open science associated with open science. And so what we've done is to work with publishers and others to essentially leverage that content in a variety of ways. So we take traditional scientific content like papers, posters, talks, and we integrate that with other forms of rich media and that kind of thing, based on patents that we filed through the UC Tech Transfer Office.
Is it a revenue generating opportunity, or is it more an organization or a service, or how do you view it?
Well, you can tell by the way I'm dressed, it's not generating huge amounts of revenue, but it is generating revenue. Okay. And it's been in business. I'm not going to say anything about the challenge at this point, but it has been in business since we were involved in the challenge, which I think now is 5 years ago, and it's still going okay.
Great, Raj.
I'm the CEO of Biological Dynamics. We're a cancer diagnostic and therapy monitoring company. The device that we actually constructed is based off of my dissertation research over here at UCSD. which we then spun out into a company and went from there. Sorry, what were the rest of the question?
Well, we're not going to talk to you. If you can't remember it, it must not be that important.
Yeah,
Tom,
there you
we'll
go.
go to you.
So, yeah, my company is Intera Energy, and what we're doing right now is we're building a technology that converts like yard waste green material into flammable, like basically a renewable natural gas, and a charcoal-like product called biochar that can be used to purify water and also store carbon that plants took out of the air when they grew, store that in the ground. So it's one of the most powerful solutions for climate change that I think is out there. We're excited about implementing right now.
Jared?
I'm Jared with Electrozyme, co-founder of Electrozyme. And at Electrozyme, we've developed a series of screen-printed biosensors that adhere directly to your skin. And while you're exercising, they actually analyze your sweat for an array of biomarkers, and they can give you feedback on such markers such as fatigue, hydration level, and just general fitness levels. And this technology was actually developed right here at UCSD by my co-founder, Josh Windmiller. And we just launched the company about a year ago. Our first target market, like I said, is kind of these fitness applications, simply because there's no regulatory approval required for fitness sensors. But we do think there's a lot of medical applications as well. So we're currently working on those kind of on the side. But yeah, we've recently closed a deal with a strategic partner who's kind of helping us get into this fitness space. So.
Hi, my name is Inan Çortaç. I am the CTO of Devanano, and our CEO, Avi Ayla, is also here. Basically, this company has started about 2 years ago, and the technology it was a part of my PhD project, like Raj. It was when I first started my PhD, I started working in Morse Cancer Center over at UCSD, and basically the technology that the company based on is first initially a cancer therapeutics. It's basically a drug, but it's a platform technology, so it can be applied to many different fields. And basically, it's a nanotechnology based delivery technology of biologics such as proteins or viruses. And right now our main focus is cancer therapeutics, and recently we raised some money, and I graduated from my PhD recently, and now we got a new space, and now we are moving along, and we are hopeful, and we see broad opportunities in our technology, and there are many fields that we can apply, but currently we are focusing mostly on cancer.
Great, thank you. For the people in the audience, does anybody have, or you have business ideas in the back of your mind that you thought is a challenge, a spot for me to kind of bring this idea to bring it to its next levels, or just by a show of hands, are there people, is that part of why this looks like there's a number of people that are like that. So what I want to do is to make sure that there are people, maybe just a couple, I don't think everybody on the panel needs to say it, but if you have a particular story, this is what was the role of the challenge in terms of, because there's a lot for it, right? You have to prepare, you have to get your story straight, you have to be able to pitch it several times, you have to have a business plan, and you have to present it in a way that is somewhat attractive to 4 or 5 different judges. I was a judge last year, and we all came from different backgrounds, and so there's a lot that goes in just preparing for the challenge. Whether you win or not, I guess, is another question. But I think preparing for it might be interesting to hear from someone on the panel, maybe 2 or 3 of you, what the role of preparing for it, participating in it, and then winning or not winning played in the development of the company. So I'll leave it to whoever wants to step forward. Jared, go ahead.
Yeah. So for me, I have an engineering background. So coming into the challenge, one of the things that we were looking to get from it was, that exposure for the company for one, but also that exposure in terms of getting your idea out there and explaining, just like Court was saying. So when you're developing a technology, you become so familiar with it that you kind of think that it's very straightforward. When you're dealing with something every day, you think that everybody understands what you're doing. But the real trick is explaining it in such a way that anybody on the street can understand what you're doing, and not just understand the technology, but understand its applications. You don't want to leave somebody wondering, well, what good is this technology? What is the real purpose of it? What pain is it solving? So that was one of the things that we really got out of the challenge was we were able to really refine our pitch, really refine our model, and make it clear as to exactly what it is, what problem we're trying to solve.
So I was fortunate enough to win the overall competition, the spring one, about 4 years ago. And my story actually started about a year earlier when we first entered in the competition, and we did really poorly. I mean, we didn't even pass like the first initial preliminary phase. And then you learn quite a bit from it. And the main concept is that, I'm an engineer by training, electrical engineering, exactly like Jared was saying. Things that are exciting to you that you want to actually feature, the specifications on that, pretty much nobody else really cares about except for you. The key components that are important you learn over the course of the presentation, building skills, and you find out people really just care about, will it make them money, how much money will it make them, when will it make them money, how quickly will it make them money. And so you actually end up changing that and showing how it actually impacts the world, how it actually affects the people, makes their lives better while making money. And go through that. It's sort of a trial by fire basis that was really useful. So the next year we then changed our entire deck around with a lot of help of people in the von Liebig Center and other advisors, people who are used to actually entering into these competitions, or we're judging them. They helped us refine the story, the plot, how you actually present, and we managed to go out there and win it all. So I would say this was invaluable. Not only as a learning tool, but some of our judges actually ended up becoming our investors, and they introduced us to more investors who introduced us to more investors, and so on and so forth. And if it wasn't for this competition, one of the mainstays of my company even existing 4 years later, probably wouldn't have happened.
So I would just say, and I think it's embodied in what everyone else has said, that for me it was really the opportunity to understand what was really quite a different culture, particularly for someone old like me who spent their whole life in academia. Suddenly dealing with things which had completely different emphasis of what was important was quite an eye-opener. And in the same way we just said about von Liebig, I would say that part of what was really important to us was the steps that happened during the entrepreneurial challenge, but that was also done in concert with things that we were doing with Connect as well, and their Springboard program, which was another intense way of really enforcing the fact that the culture was different and we had to think and act differently within it.
I think that's I think the perfect word, culture, that is important when you're taking a certain idea from the lab and you're taking it into this completely different culture, which has a completely different set of values and ethics when it comes to that particular product. So within the lab, everybody has this particular way of describing how great it is, and the specifications and high five, and then there's kind of these scientific nerdy jokes that everyone has that works great in the lab and so on. But when you take it outside into this presentation, those jokes don't work as well, and people aren't as interested in that presentation or that set of values and ethics for that particular product. In there, you have to kind of turn it a little bit, and some of it is, how does it impact the world? How does it impact my life today, whether it's financially or in some health perspective? And so that's, I think, an important point that needs to be realized is your great idea probably is a good idea or a great idea. It needs to be presented that way. And obviously, especially if there's going to be investors, my job is to invest somebody else's money. It's not my money. And my job is to make them more money, and not just to make investments in things that I think are decent ideas and to help out my buddy because he just graduated, he's looking for a job and all that. But there's a particular role that the investors have to play, which you need to make sure your product and your opportunity kind of fit into that particular culture. So I think that's a great point, Phil. So, Enoch, I wanted to ask, from a personality perspective, I think everybody out there has a great idea, And there's something, everybody has these ideas, but there's got to be something, because there's a certain number of people that come make it up on the panel, a certain number of people that win the challenge, and there's a lot of people that sit in the audience that aren't in a position yet to say, I've done this or done that. What about your personality, you think? Was it just a great idea, and then the idea kind of drove you there, you just kind of hung on and it brought you along? Or what about you and your personality and drive and other aspects were essential to kind of get to this point?
I think actually that's a very good question, and I think entrepreneurship is basically maybe a trait, a personal trait that, and I believe that many entrepreneurs share same kind of traits. And for instance, for me, my name is İnanç. İnanç means faith in Turkish. So for me, it's like I'm usually whatever I do, I just want to make it work. I just don't want to make things that just for doing. I just want whatever I do, I want it to work. That's why I'm an engineer. And I see engineering as you just finding solutions, and not only finding solutions, you find solutions that really supposed to work. And from scientific perspective, for instance, if you look at different PhD projects, for instance, for a biologist, understanding something is useful, and it can be a very good PhD project. And I have friends, for instance, from biology, they have an initial hypothesis, and throughout his PhD, he showed that his hypothesis was wrong. And it's a very good PhD because you prove something. But in engineering, it's totally different. If something doesn't work, then it's worthless. You need to make it work. And actually, to make something work, the main characteristic of an entrepreneur, I think, is you need to have faith in it, and you need to insist, and you need to just pursue it, no matter what. And you will see people saying that, oh, it will never work, and that's what happened to me. The first response I got, say, oh, this is good, but it will never work. And I even worked on this project without telling my advisor. Then I went to him with the result, and he was excited. And this you need to, and the thing is, entrepreneur is the one that believes in this, and you need to be the one that pursue this. And I think this is persistence is one of the main characteristics, and I think most of the entrepreneurs share this.
Tom, what would you say? I mean, it's gotten to, you have a point now, you might even comment that you've got a reactor now that's being built or is built and is doing what you envision to do, and how do you get it to that point?
Yeah, I guess probably the most important trait that I noticed in myself is just the ability to look at your concept and have faith in your analysis of whether or not it's a good idea. And particularly when you're an entrepreneur and you're starting on newer ideas, I mean, you have to innovate to be an entrepreneur. You have to do something different by definition. And when you go down the path that no one else has gone down before, you often don't get the people that you talk to either don't understand it or are having, they've never really gone that far out from the mainstream and what is going on in their careers. So you have to have confidence in your own judgment to be able to vet ideas and steer your ship, if you will. And obviously perseverance is a very important one, and kind of quieting the noise that's around you sometimes, and just getting your focus and then realizing what about yourself you need to change to get the result that you want in the end. Like whether it be you need to work on your leadership, or you need to work on your technical skills, whatever that is, being able to recognize that in yourself and then and make it happen is very important.
Billy, you're looking at me, you got a twinkle in your eye. You got something.
I agree with all of. I was just thinking that it's sort of, you have to have a bit more than you need to have To be an entrepreneur, you need a bit more than it takes to almost do any other profession, but you still need the same things, you just need more of it. You need more ego, you need more ability to be able to learn to live with rejection, because you're going to get lots of rejection. And you only got to walk up Sand Hill Road to get rejection. And and all of the other aspects that go into many, many careers but are very important. I think the ability to realize your own strengths and weaknesses and compensate with the help of others in the process, because there's so many facets to being successful in this that no one person is going to have even a fraction of them. And so, you have to be able to work in a team, you have to lead, you have to inspire, on it goes. But you just need lots of all of those things, I guess.
And I think eventually the world you get into, and you would hope, and I think that one example, at least for the challenges, it rewards people with those particular attributes. And I kind of see this aspect in going through, as Raj hinted at, it is a practice ground. And I'll tell you, as people come in and they make a pitch, and the idea might be fantastic, but the person giving the pitch is horrible, you just tune out, you're like, well, maybe it's not such a good idea. Because you see so many similar things. If someone's pitching me a cancer therapeutic story, and you have to find these differences to say, okay, I'm going to look at this one a second time, or I'm going to look at this one a third time. And it may come down to the way it's presented, or the way that person's passion or their perspective comes across in that story, but not in this wild, I'm slobbering over myself passion, where I'm so excited about it, rabid dog thing. You can feel the passion in this very sophisticated, refined story. Because you're pitching a very sophisticated, high-end product, but I can't have the guy, because if I hire the guy and I'm a CEO, I don't know what he's going to do tomorrow. I got to have this stable yet passionate person that I'm going to write a large check to, that's going to hopefully not spend it or take it off somewhere and not get it back. And so there is that line and that balance. And I think, as Phil mentioned, you have to have all those basics that you might have if you decide, okay, I'm going to be an accountant and go in and do that. You have to be able to wake up on time, get dressed, and do all those kinds of things, and do your job well. But you're going to have to be an accountant when you're an entrepreneur and you don't have any accounting background. You're going to have to be a salesperson and all those things that are out there that are essential for you to get your job across. You have to want to do that. And I think these are examples where people, they wanted to do that and they've gotten it to a point where it's worked. And there's many examples where it hasn't, and I know many people that didn't get there till the 5th time or the 6th time, but then they finally got there. And so it's not judged, maybe a lot of times, is when you look at the data. Do you analyze the data on 1 project, 6 projects, 8 projects before you decide whether you're good at it or not? So that's a personal question you probably have to ask yourself. So the other question I think around the challenge that I wanted to get across is, what other aspects, other than your idea and your personal attributes, and I think going through the process, it highlights your gaps. And I wanted to kind of find out from you, what gaps did you bring? You're all obviously very smart, passionate, persevering, all of those kinds of things, but what was it obvious that you had a gap in order to get to the next step, and were there aspects of the challenge or resources on campus that helped fill those gaps to move things forward? Anybody?
I guess I'll start. Basically, for me at least, the main gaps were damn near everything outside of engineering. You don't know a lot about the world until you go out into it. It's sort of a trial by fire basis, just like the Entrepreneur Challenge. You'd be surprised at the million little things that you have to deal with, and it's sort of as sort of entering into the previous question a little bit. You actually learn, and I think it's a good analogy you made about the mad dog thing, about the rabbit, but you have to have sort of the qualities of a dog. You gotta have like boundless enthusiasm, wake up at the crack of dawn, loyal, friendly, trustworthy, everyone's gotta love you while you're trying to get the stuff, but also, like stubborn and obstinate and persistent, as well as, with a good touch of stupidity in a lot of ways, to help you basically forget all the bad things that happen, only focus on the present and good. But you will learn quite a few things, especially, and this was something that I wasn't expecting so much of, running a company for 4 years, which is, it's easy to start a company. It's actually very easy to start a company. It's very, very hard to actually maintain one and keep it together, because most of your job turns from sort of a technical focus into more of a people focus. It's sort of an old adage. I don't know how many people still rely on it. People invest in people, not so much technology. So if you find the right guy, he's going to get the job done for you. In the same way, 80% of my time is probably spent in HR and trying to make sure we get the right people who can do the job, because I can't just fold up my sleeves anymore and just run in and do stuff, because other things will sort of lie fallow if I do that. So.
Anybody else? Any gaps that were highlighted for you going through the process?
So basically, as actually Raj said something similar, but it's basically idea is a start. If you have a good idea, it's a good start. But actually, it is only the beginning. It basically starts when you have things working. Actually, I mean, for me, it's basically okay. It was a good idea. Then I started working on it, and actually, I worked quite a bit of different ideas, and only a few of them worked. And that's how it is. You need to just give it a shot and just do it. And then I start scared. I become really like, I start to worry when it starts to work. Because when it starts, okay, you are comfortable in the lab doing the thing that you know, and you're doing it all day, and you are becoming an expert in failing. But when it works, then that's the part that you don't know anything about. Now, I mean, you know it works, and then you believe in it, then you want to make it like, I mean, for me it's like, I want to make it, I want it to be in the clinic at some point. Then you need to take the initiative and make these connections, find the right people that will help you and that will tell you the things that you don't know. I mean, for me, I'm a scientist. I don't know about business. Then I need to find people that knows business. If I just go and jump, then I become like arrogant, or if my ego takes over myself, and if I start to think that, oh, I can do everything, then I may be risking that idea. So in this case, you shouldn't have like a big ego. Ego helps, because everything starts with that ego. But then there are the things that you see, okay, this I'm missing. I don't know about business. I don't know about like the clinic. Okay, I'm a like technology person, but I mean, if it is gonna go to clinic, you need to be working with different people. Then I have no experience about building up a team. But then I need to work with people that will help me to build that team. So those are the things. And for instance, Entrepreneur Challenge and this kind of events that help you find the right people, because it doesn't work. Okay, you come to an event and you meet with some person, and then next day, okay, everything is done. It doesn't happen that way. So you meet with someone, and a month later, someone introduced you to someone else, and that someone else introduced you to someone else. So, and this goes on forever. So then you need to be open to everything, open to these interactions, and these kind of events are particularly important for that. So in the end, it all comes back to network, and whatever, regardless of whatever you are doing, it all comes back to like business is business. And there are rules, there are certain rules of doing the business. And you need to learn it if you want something to work, and if you want something to come to the next level.
We're coming up towards the end of this part, and then there's going to be Q&A. And I think the overarching story that's come out is you can come up with ideas, you can bring the companies forward, you can find amounts of money along the way that kind of give you the motivation that I should take the next step. And there are resources, partly going through the process with the challenge, but also through the networking opportunities that the challenge provides. And so, unless somebody had an epiphany in terms of a final comment around the challenge and their experience with it, I'm going to open it up for questions from the audience. Okay. You can only take one at a time. So, yep, you have to come up to the mic.
My name is Ryan, and I'm a first year here at UCSD. This question is kind of generally just directed at all of you, but by and large, I was just wondering if my company is based mainly off software, to what extent does that software have to be completely functional and up and running? Like, if I was giving a pitch and showing you guys this big project that I had completely mapped out down to like if statements, or not down to if statements, but like huge concepts, and I could say, all right, this project's all lined up. I need money in order to find people to put it together. I could find the people. I know exactly what skill set they need, but to what extent does that whole plan that have to be filled out?
I'll offer a little bit of advice. I would say since you're a first year, I would grab one of your friends to do as much work as you guys can do together, or bring more people in on the project before you go and look for money, depending on what you want to do with your company, but and how much of it you want to keep. It will be determined by how far you get before you can actually pull in the bigger money. And so if you can get to a point where you can have it functional, or to the point where you get a decent user base, that can take you so much further in terms of in terms of your monetary rewards, at least, that you can get from pursuing that idea.
Yeah, I think the important part around, I think you're hinting at is, certainly for venture capitalists, I mean, it's the most expensive money there is. So you come to a venture capitalist for money, they're going to expect a large chunk of the company in order to be involved and run the company. And so if you're at some beta stage, or you're just about to launch, or you have a user base that's there, you have a much better argument to say you should keep a much larger piece of the company versus, well, I've got this idea. At that point, we're coming in, building the team, bringing the money, and so on. And we'll always try to make an argument that we should own a bigger chunk of the company, but you would have more there. So I think that's a piece of it. If it's angel money, for individuals putting dollars in and so on, you'd have a better opportunity, I think, there. But certainly in the software space, I think you need to be much closer to a product, I think, to start really raising dollars.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Hi, I'm Boyko, and I'm a PhD student in his final year, so I see myself going down the route that at least 3 or 4 of you have gone. So, and not about the details about technology transfer, but how do you infuse new ideas that would come later in from academia back into a company that you've kind of spun off? So, a company starts with an idea, but then you need to keep innovating. And many of the innovations are in different paths, but still you need to keep current with academia, because otherwise you will fall behind.
Do you mean like licensing patents in?
That's part of it, but hiring people that are 5 years, 10 years down behind you on the same path.
Yeah, that's also what you would do. Pretty much, if you want to stay current, the legal way to do it is to license the patents in and cover everything. And the correct thing, and everybody should do that. I didn't say anything different. But the key is to, make sure you stay current, read a lot of papers, especially in your field. You got to be constantly on top of it, make sure, nobody's building something that you didn't see that took you out, blindsided you. Hire people from labs that you think are quite useful. That and obviously have a good interview with them and their professors or whatever. Collaborate. Professors love collaborations, just like anybody else, right? Because then they get a little bit of prestige, they get papers, make some money depending on how much you've raised, and you get to have a lot of intellectual know-how, potentially share some of the patent work depending on what you do with them. Maybe find some good people in their labs to also hire, and then externally set up things where you can hire people out from industry as well that may have the expertise in your capability.
I mean, it's quite common for us, because we start companies based on academic inventions, that we'll usually hire. Usually we end up hiring the graduate students that did that original work that was behind that publication. So you get that continuity of the original invention. We certainly will license the patents or intellectual property, or have access to any of the tangible materials that are relevant for the project and bring them into the company. And you'll innovate on top of that. And in some cases, you'll be glad that you have the license from UC San Diego because you need that from a freedom to operate perspective. In some cases, you might have to get the license rights from somebody outside, but it's a very normal continuum to start with the idea from academia, get the foundation of those intellectual property, and then innovate from there. It's a normal, standard process.
Hi, I'm John Muir. I'm a fourth year student here at UCSD. So when you start getting traction, start sharing your idea, and you're inundated with advice coming from everywhere. So what are some rules of thumb that will allow you to extrapolate the signal from the noise without missing any good ideas or, drinking too much of your own Kool-Aid?
So, it's a very good question. One thing is to really figure out what is the noise, what is the signal. You need to really get a really broad noise. You need to capture all the noise, so that at some point, so it's good to interact as much as possible. So sometimes, especially initially, when you talk to the first person that you think that very knowledgeable in what you are wondering or in the field, at first everybody makes a lot of sense. You start to believe everyone. Every single person you talk to, you believe it. But after a while, now you start to see that, oh, you know what, they told me that, but this guy says the opposite. Actually, they are both make sense. Then you start to hear more things that start to make sense. Now, making all of this sense, then at some point it doesn't become possible that all this idea makes sense. Then you start to see the differences among them, and you start to see the common points. And then finally you realize the best path you can go. It's basically like a statistical study. Eventually, if you have enough data points, then you start to see the average. And then you start to see the path behind the noise. So basically, I would say just talk to every single person you can find. So that's why this kind of events and networking is good. In the end, it all comes back to networking. Just talk to as much as possible and hear different thoughts.
Yeah, I'll just reiterate that if you can get as much feedback from as many people as possible, it's always a good thing. And you'll start to recognize patterns. But I think the best feedback that you get is that critical feedback, because oftentimes you'll get people that just want to please you, and because you have a cool technology, so they'll just agree with whatever you say. But I think some of the best feedback we've gotten on our technology and on our business model and our business plans has been that critical feedback saying, I don't get this, or you should change this, or it's that kind of feedback that I think it's more real in our experience so far. So
to figure out, sort of a difference between who you should listen to and who you shouldn't, at least in my opinion, you need to have a finely tuned BS detector. Forgive my French, but the idea is that everybody's going to tell you what their opinions are, and you have your own. The key is who's telling you what. Why are they telling you that? Do they have a specific reason for telling you that? Just their opinion, or do they have some expertise in the subject or the knowledge? Is following their advice actually going to help? Is the majority of people also telling you that, or is it just one guy in a corner who has no idea what he's talking about? Or is it a guy who has a lot of money who's like, hey, this is a great idea, I'll give you the money, but it has to do this? That guy's opinion you take. The other guy who has nothing to do with anything, you don't. Things like that. So it's a basis, right? You learn as much as you can from everybody, because you never know what's useful and what's not, but you're going to learn pretty quickly, like they said, the patterns of what people think are good and what's not, because there's going to be a sort of a voice sort of coalescing in that arena. You should also weigh what you hear based off of who's telling you and what they know. So.
And I think you'll have to start with whatever your initial vision is for your particular product or idea. And then this information will come in and have some impact and turn it left or turn it right. And you say, well, this guy basically wants to turn my drug into a cosmeceutical or something. I'm not interested in making the next face cream. I want to stay over in this space. This is the vision for my particular company. And so I think you need to start with that, and you'll get a sense of where things are moving back and forth and whether it's just getting too far off. But I agree with all of them. You might as well hear it all, and all of a sudden, 7 horrible ideas when you put them together, and on top of your original idea, all of a sudden looks pretty good.
So I've got one for you. Considering all of the different takes on the university that each of you have, the different experiences, the different niches that you came out of, what would you say were the biggest assets and detractors from the sort of combination of variables that got you into entrepreneurship? And how do you think that moving forward, the university could become better at fostering more entrepreneurs and really making doing this and really putting yourself into this hard thing relatable and attractive?
You're sort of setting me up because that's kind of, I suppose, part of my job, right? That I'm supposed to be helping foster these things. And I would say that this kind of event, these kind of people that are here on the stage and the work, here are students. I mean, we just have to have so much more of this because we are not, as this university, particularly entrepreneurial. I mean, what we see here is an exception, and certainly the students, many of the students come in and are entrepreneurial. But I have to say, last year I talked to every new incoming faculty member who was on general campus. That's not in the health sciences, but the rest of campus. I must have talked to 80 to 100 new faculty. And it was clear that not one of them had come here because they were entrepreneurial and they thought that this was a good place to be an entrepreneurial and an academic at the same time. And that kind of culture really has to change, and we have to start. You're driving it as students, but I think we also need to be hiring faculty that really have a sense of entrepreneurism, and there's just, frankly, not enough.
Irene Chen, material science student. My question is, you all have your own company and facing a lot of obstacles during the process of getting it started. What was your inner voice like? What was the strength and the motivation and inner voice, like that little voice telling you that you should keep on going?
Tom, you probably got one, because I'm sure you've heard you're going to do what with trees and cut
Yeah.
grass and.
Yeah, my company has encountered a lot of obstacles along the way, particularly just getting that first traction. And now we're very happy in our trajectory. But in terms of the inner voice that kept me going, it's one of those things that you have to understand yourself and how you work and what motivates you, and you kind of have to control your environment in a sense, where you only listen to those people that are in supporting you and things like that, and not listening to those people. So it's more like you're listening to the other voices out there that are in support of you, and then also just refining the vision that you have. And you're like, I want to go to this place, and understanding where that place is in the future, and working and figuring out all the steps that it's going to take to get there. And I found recounting those steps and figuring out how to get to my goal, and going over that in my mind was one of the most effective ways to stay the course when you're in a troubled time or what have you. Because as an entrepreneur, you get a lot of troubled times, and you're problem solving all the time, and it takes a special motivation to keep going.
How would you describe that inner voice? Is it a female? It's like a Barry White, or what's the?
Yeah. Well, probably it sounded just like me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, mine's James Earl Jones. So.
Yours? Okay. All right. Sorry.
All right, well, I'd like to thank you, the panel, so much. It's been a really great discussion, and thank you, Court, so much for being a great moderator, and thank you to the audience, everyone, for coming. Definitely, if you have any questions, just come see one of the staff members of the Entrepreneur Challenge, myself or David. Please remember to go to our website, challenge.ucsd.edu, where you can sign up for our email list to get notification of future events. Also, our meetup group, which is new this year, the purpose of that is we're actually going to be doing a bi-monthly, just really informal meetup all around campus to help people with team development and any kind of help that they would need with developing their companies. So with that, thank you so much.